Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic rolls on this Tuesday morning. Get a few more of your emails to read, and we'll get our poll question results before we step aside for this Tuesday. Again, a reminder, Tim Polasek's press conference. You'll see it live on WDAY Extra coming up at 1:30 today as the Bison get ready for Missouri State. We're into the final week of the regular season in Division II. Minnesota State University Moorhead will wrap up its year on the road in Bismarck on Saturday afternoon as they take on the University of Mary. Dragons lost a tough one to Bemidji State on Saturday afternoon. Steve Laqua joins us as he does each and every Tuesday at 10:30. If you looked at the score like I did and saw Dragons are up double digits here, couldn't have started much better. Did that tell the true story of how the game actually played out in your mind?
Well, it's a tale of kind of two starts, a start and an end, really,
Yeah.
for us. Started well, ended poorly. In the end, great start, right? We get on the board, we get 14 points, you get a pick six from your defense, and so definitely there's a lot of energy going, a lot of excitement from that standpoint. Had some things we felt like, in rhythm and going early, and starts haven't been our great, our strength this season. So coming out hot, you feel like, okay, you're in a good spot. And then we went, I think, 4 or 5 possessions in a row where we started inside the 10, with 90 yards in front of us offensively, once right on the, the 6-inch yard line. And, we end up giving away 2 points on that, which, that is what it is. It's goes there. And then really the part that was tough on us was from a momentum standpoint was we got them at the end of the half, and they throw the Hail Mary at the end of the half. And we didn't have any players that were taunting their fans or anything like that. No Chicago Bears antics, and the ball bounced around right into their hand, and they end up with a touchdown right at the end of half to cut it to 14-9. And you've been in this rivalry game long enough that you realize there's crazy plays like that happen. It's a wild thing. It's part of the legend of rivalry games. And so I tried to go in at halftime and just say, hey, perspective here, fellas. At the end of the day, regardless of how it started or ended in the half, 14-9, Dragons up 5 with the football to start the half. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And I thought we came out pretty well to start things. We just couldn't get anything sustained offensively. And if you only score 7 points with your offense in this conference, probably in any conference,
Yeah.
it's hard to win football games unless you're the Vikings. They can win games without scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
So we haven't gotten to that point yet.
There's no manual to go into halftime when you give up a Hail Mary. Like, what are you even thinking as you're walking into the locker room to say?
Honestly, you try and draw on experience. So for me, it was back to the first state championship game at Fargo Shanley. We threw the ball into the end zone to Josh Rodenbiker, which looked like a catch. And then the defender kind of grabbed it while he was in the end zone with them and yanked it away after he was in the end zone. They called it an interception. And so, and then it wasn't you, but it was a sideline reporter asked me right after that, hey, what did you think of that call? Literally within a minute. So I did a really good job that time of just kind of biting my tongue and, moving on. But the point being, in that situation, I went right into the locker room and said, hey, we can't allow this to be an excuse. We can't allow this to be a complaint. You can't put it as a get out of jail free card in your back pocket and say, well, if we lose, this is the reason. And so I kind of tapped into that, went into the locker room right away, which is out of the normal piece. Normally the coaches would get some adjustments. We'd come in there. I went in, addressed them right away, said, hey, this is the situation. Let's adjust our perspective. And we had talked about that earlier in the season. And so I tried to draw back on earlier season experience, get our mind right. And I think the guys did a good job coming out and starting the second half.
Their defensive line, is that about as good as you've seen all season?
I would say without a doubt, top to bottom, they rotated guys in, 36 is leading the league in sacks. And so you're trying to work to protect yourself against him and trying to add the back into protection with him. And then 97 and 9 are coming in. And that's just like, there was a lot of them that are really good, and give them credit. They did a great job getting after us, forcing Jack to make quick throws and forcing us to try and get off of the bump and run coverage earlier. Their plan came together really well, and we just weren't able to work against it.
Frustration. I mean, that's your last game at home. What was the mood after that? You want to win every game, but just even for your seniors, knowing it's the last time they're playing, what was that after the game?
Well, it was senior day, last home game. That makes it difficult, right? You want to go out on top. And then to add, Then we have the parents put on a banquet after the
Yep.
last home game, which is phenomenal. 450 family members and friends in there that the parents all handle. It's a great day for Dragon football, and so it's difficult to go in there after a game like that. But I challenged the guys after the game. We're on the turf, we're talking about it, and I said, hey, there's a lot of people in there that have invested a lot into your success, into your journey, into living and dying every single play with you. And so while we might not want to feel like going in there and giving them our best, this is real life. At times you got to pull on the big boy pants and you have to do difficult things when you maybe don't feel like it. And so let's go in there and I will give you my best. I will give them everything that I got. We need to do the same thing because they've been doing that for years for us. And so while it wasn't easy, it was a great life lesson. And that is really what football and life is about. And so we're just trying to teach life through football, and that was an opportunity for us to do it.
So you got one game left here at Mary on Saturday. I mentioned off the top, winning records at stake, which that means a lot, especially for what you've done in this program, trying to do back-to-back. That hasn't happened often. You've done it a couple times over since you've been head football coach. You got a trophy game. You're playing on the road. Give me the sense of okay, what are we aiming for? What are you looking for to hammer with the team this week in practice?
Well, right away, we're trying to send the seniors out the right way. And one of the things we talked about was a life lesson. Again, how you finish says a lot about who you are, whether it's finishing a job, finishing a relationship, whatever it might be, finishing a season. And so if we're going to talk about being a program that's +2, that's going to give everything they have to the end and beyond, well, this is a statement to try and say, who are we at the core of our DNA? Let's not just what do we talk about, but what do we actually do? And so this is that opportunity. It's easy. It's a great trap game, right? We played at home. You have the letdown against a rivalry. You have the banquet that has closure a little bit. And you're like, oh yeah. And then there's one more week left against a team that we've beaten for the last handful of years that hasn't had a great year. It's a trap game to allow you to just think you can walk in there and do it. And I'll tell you, you can't, because nobody in this league does that. They're a good football team. They played Sioux Falls, who's in the playoff hunt, to a 2-point game. They're tied with Mankato going in the second half last week. Like they're a team that's capable, and they're a team that wants to win this. And so we can't let their want factor, be greater than our want factor.
And playing with nothing to lose, right? Those are probably the most dangerous teams.
Correct. We've been there before, right?
Yeah.
You can gamble on making some plays and going for 4th downs, being aggressive in that standpoint. So you're playing with house money, so to say. And so, yeah, you're in their place. You're on the road. You don't know what you're going to get from a weather standpoint. Obviously, that's impactful to our offense. You never know what you're going to get from we found that in McKinley. You lose 3 starters right away in the first quarter, and you're scrambling a little bit. Like, football can be crazy. And so, hey, you got to prepare for the worst and then go out and get it done. And that's it. That's says a lot about who you are.
This senior class, does this one mean, I don't know, more differently to you, considering when they came in, they couldn't play football in 2020 because the season got wiped out? Can you describe what this class means to you?
Well, the senior banquet, when I get up there and say a little bit about each kid, that one hit hard. That I thought I'd make it through most of them without, believe it or not, I must be getting soft in my old age, just crotchety old man. But the tears were coming out with the first one. So when there's 18 and you're holding tears back on 18 of those guys, this group hit different. And my wife mentioned that earlier in the week. She said it seems like this one's hitting different. And there's been a lot of guys that have played a lot of football in that group. You've been through a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of guys in those groups that we've spent a lot of time in leadership development meetings in season, especially out of season, talking about being better people, talking about what's going on in their life and how to manage those things better. And I think those stories become closer and closer. And maybe as you get older, you realize that those are some of the legacy pieces, that you leave behind, or that they're going to miss, right?
Yeah.
You've had 4 years with these guys doing certain things, handshakes after practice or a hug before a game. And you're like, next year you walk out there and you don't have a hug from that guy. Now it might be a different guy, but it's a different situation when you don't hug a guy and he says, "I love you, coach."
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that's it's special, and that's why we're in this business. It's about relationships. Life's about relationships. You're just trying to invest into young men and make them great people once they walk out of here.
I got to ask you about a guy I covered in high school that's played, I think, almost every game, and Tyler Martin. What has he meant? He's a guy who doesn't get any stats. He's an offensive lineman, but he hasn't missed a game, Steve, in 4 years.
Yeah, and he's started, I think, almost every one since maybe his first game here. In durability, reliability. He was just kind of there and playing, right, to begin. And you've seen how he then grew into a leader of that entire offensive line, a leader that influences position coach, influences the other guys on the team, and builds them in. Like, that's what you want to see out of him. Now, the crazy thing is he was going into his 40, I think, second career straight start in Minot. We're doing a walkthrough in the motel parking lot, right? We have a screenplay. The guys are a little amped up that day. This is a walkthrough, mind you, but they're kind of jogging around a little bit. He's jogging out downfield into a screenplay, gets tangled up with another offensive lineman, drops right down, knees, wrists, darn near gets injured. I'm watching him walk through going, we're going to end a 42-game starting streak by a walkthrough in a parking lot in the hotel in Minot, North Dakota. Like, this might be the worst story ever. So thank goodness he shook it off, got up, and was able to make it happen. So one more game and he'll complete the streak.
That's awesome. I know it's Dakota Bowl weekend. You already mentioned a great Dakota Bowl story. What is this weekend? I know it means a lot to you, but what about those championships? What stands out to you the most when you think about Dakota Bowl weekend when it comes around?
That's what I dreamed about as a kid, being a part of, growing up. Like, that's when you're in small town North Dakota, like, you don't have, the Vikings aren't really your team because they're not in the state. It's like everything in small towns revolves around high school football. And that's the pinnacle of what it is. And so as a kid, you always wanted to be there. Fell short as a kid, got lucky enough to be back there as a coach, and then allow other guys to have the dream that I wanted to live. I remember talking about him before that first state championship game, before we left Shanley High School and went over to the Dome, and just said, people they don't have reunions for the second place teams. And so if you want to be able to have this, where a legacy where you always come back and you have the opportunity to see each other and whatever, then you need to get it done in this game. And it's the importance of it. So let's go all in and let's go after it. And so there's going to be a bunch of guys that are going to be able to do that today. And they're going to be able to come back with their wives, their kids in the future, back to a place that's got a ton of memories. I got a ton of memories when I go back home. They'll be able to do that in the future, and that's really special. And so it pumps me up every time I see it. I love the state of North Dakota, and I love high school football in North Dakota.
It's ironic, by the way, you had the only overtime game in the history of the Dakota Bowl, and then your hometown did it a couple years ago to bump you guys out of being the only one.
It's crazy how it's a small world. Everything's connected. And so it's special. And I guys are living dreams out there, and I don't know if they realize it yet, but at some point they realize it, or when you look back at it, you're like, it's a special time, and enjoy the special time. I think, my always advice to anybody that I'm talking to, recruits that are playing that game, is just be you, do what you do.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything different or press or be anything. The team that can be themselves is a team that's going to be confident and comfortable and have a chance to be able to win. And so it's a great thing to watch. Someday I'd love to either be a part of it, announcing it if I'm not coaching, or coaching in it again. It's something special.
You're putting a resume out there? Because I'll bring it upstairs if that's what you're trying to do right now.
Hey, I would love to do that. I think there's nothing more special than that.
It's great to see you, bud. Good luck on Saturday. We'll talk again next week to wrap things up, all right?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Steve Laqua joining us, MSU Moorhead football coach. Dragons at Mary on Saturday in Bismarck to wrap up the 2024 regular season. We come back, we'll put a bow on things, answer our poll question, got a couple other emails, and we'll say so long for this Tuesday morning show. Back on Hot Mic right after this.